Hello and welcome. Blockchain is going to change the world, but some of us don't know exactly how, but we're going to find out with the author of the book Blockchain Revolution, Alex Tapscott, who joins me. Alex, thank you very much for speaking with us.
My pleasure.
Right. So walk us through what's been happening in blockchain in the last year or two, right? I mean, there was a lot of expectation. Some of it has perhaps happened. People in the financial services world hope that things will, blockchain will start playing an important role in the way transactions are done. What's really happening there?
Well, what's really happened over the past 2 years is that blockchain technology has gone from something that was on the fringes of business to something that's been really central to a lot of thinking by business leaders in many different industries. The technology, as I think some of the listeners and viewers may know, is the underlying technology behind cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin. But Bitcoin is really just the beginning of the story. And the first industry, as you pointed out, to really understand this technology more fully was in financial services. The technology basically offers the ability for two or more parties to transact and do business peer-to-peer without relying on the system of intermediaries that the current financial services industry relies upon. So to that extent, banks see an opportunity because they also rely on many intermediaries to validate identity and do transactions and create trust. But there's also obviously a big risk to their business because a lot of what they do and a lot of the value they bring is as a trusted third party. So the best banks are not just the ones who are looking at it opportunistically as ways to cut costs. They're the ones who are looking at it strategically in that how can they use this technology to transform how they do business and enter new markets. Over the past 2 years, I think, though, you've seen the transition to many other industries. So it's not just banking, it's supply chain management, even things like music and art and film are being impacted and infiltrated, you could say, by this technology. So it's been very exciting.
Right. So let me ask you about banks specifically, where there's some activity already, happening. How is, if you can quote example, how was a bank beginning to use it, and how does it fit with their existing system of transactions?
Sure. So one good example would be the market for cross-border payments and transactions. So right now we rely on some institutions that have been around for a few decades. The SWIFT system in the United States, it's called ACH, the Automated Clearinghouse. And they're technologies that allow different financial parties to reconcile transactions, but they're built on technology that's 30 to 40 years old. And even though it's easy to move information like email and PDFs and things like that over the internet, it's very hard to move value. So what blockchain enables for banks is the ability for them to settle cross-border payments, for example, bank-to-bank, peer-to-peer in real time, rather than relying on these old systems. And that's just one of 8 different ways I think the industry will be transformed. One thing that's happened over the past year, which is actually a great, real, wonderful example of this technology, is how it's changing the world of venture capital and how entrepreneurs get access to growth capital, which is that a third of all the venture money that's been raised for blockchain companies in the past year has not been from traditional venture capitalists or traditional investors who rely on intermediaries like lawyers and bankers and other third parties. It's actually been in peer-to-peer crowd sales that have been done via blockchain. So companies will issue tokens representing equity in their company in exchange for money, and they'll raise a lot of money that way. In fact, last year $200 million was raised in this exact way to fund companies across a wide range of industries. And I think next year you'll see the inflection point where more companies will raise money this way than they will through traditional means. So that's something alone that's not just applicable to blockchain companies, it's applicable to any startup. If you want to raise money today, the cost of capital for you is very, very high because the risk that investors assume is very high. But if you can spread that risk out over thousands or maybe even millions of investors, then you can drive the cost of raising money down, and you can also democratize access to investments.
And is it easy to, finally, if I raise money through, let's say, Bitcoins or, any blockchain transaction, is it easy for me to convert all that into real cash?
Yeah, absolutely.
I am. Yeah.
The tokens themselves. So if you've got a share of a company that's a token that trades on a blockchain, you could trade it for a cryptocurrency, which could easily be converted into regular money. I think what's the most interesting thing that could happen over the next couple of years is for cryptocurrencies to extend to governments and central banks. And we've been seeing certain central banks, actually I think the central bank in India, the Bank of England, the Bank of Canada, the Federal Reserve, are all exploring the idea of doing a crypto fiat currency. Because if you had a government-issued cryptocurrency, you could settle transactions in real time. You could reduce the friction and cost in the economy, and it would be something that people are already used to using. They're already used to spending rupees. They're already used to spending dollars, so it's a piece of cake, right?
Right. Last question. So I saw one estimate which says that the global blockchain market could be close to $8 billion in about 7 years. Is that 4 years? Sorry. Is that something that's feasible? Is it going to be bigger, smaller? What's your sense?
Well, it depends what that means exactly. I mean, is that the total addressable market for companies using this technology?
Yeah.
Is it the total market value of the companies in aggregate? I don't know. But my personal view is that the future is not something to be predicted. It's something to be achieved. Everyone's got predictions, and the one thing we can be sure of is that most of them will be incorrect. So to me, it's more about this technology has the potential to transform a lot of industries, financial services, but also lots of other things, and maybe even change the way we organize capability in the economy. And so I leave it to the entrepreneurs and the business leaders who are doing this to seize the mantle and change the world as they see fit. Right. So it could be 8 billion, it could be 800 billion. I don't really know, right. But it depends on what they do with this technology.
Right. And for those who wanted to find out more, you should read Alex Tapscott's book, Blockchain Revolution.
Yes,
right? Yeah,
that's a great idea.
Yeah, thank you.